Hi, it's Michelle Tressler with Hinterland Brewery in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I'm here to offer my full and wholehearted endorsement of Get Hoptimized. They've been an absolute pleasure to work with for the last couple of years, and not only are they experts in the digital marketing game, but they're total pros when it comes to our partnership. They're reliable, organized, and they're generous.
Hey there, this is Robert Snyder with Big Dogs Brewing Company in Las Vegas, and we're excited to work with Chris and his team at Get Hoptimized. Not only do they do a great job with the creative side of the marketing that they do for us, but they also make us better, more organized, and more focused on building our brand. Highly recommend using Chris at Get Hoptimized.
Can't tell you how much good work they're doing for us and helping us grow our brands and our restaurant. And I think you'll be in good hands if you choose to use Get Hoptimized.
All right, we are here. This is the Craft Beer Professionals 2025 Panel Fest. You are now in strategic AI adoption for the craft beer industry. In this panel, we've brought together a group of craft beer industry experts to discuss how AI is transforming everything from consumer engagement, operational efficiency, to legal considerations and data-driven insights. Today, our aim is to help your craft beer company discover how to harness the power of AI to innovate, grow, and thrive. To get us started, let's do some introductions. Let's go around the room, maybe starting with, I guess, Hootie, you're at the bottom right of my screen here. Why don't you tell us who you are, what company you represent, what you do?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, thank you for having me. Jonathan Hooten here. I go by Hootie in the industry because there's just a ton of Johns out there. Been in CPG and craft beverages for 25 years plus. And basically now, as the co-founder of Paradym Solutions, we are now creating very cool AI tools for companies in CPG space. Bevlytics is one of them that we're using for beer, wine, and spirits. And our newest one that we added is 420lytics.ai that will be launching probably next month. So our whole thing is all about data and how to use your data, your internal data or your external data that you have through our AI models.
Sweet. Let's break up the Johns. We'll do like a John sandwich here. Mike, why don't you give us your intro?
I'm Michael Perozzo of Vice Beer in Vancouver, Washington. I've been around the industry 15 years on the marketing side, working with a lot of different breweries before I had the opportunity to open my own. We're a small brewery, going to do about 1,200 barrels this year. And it's my wife and I. We got 3 other full-time employees and a few other folks to fill in the weekend shifts behind the bar. So it's a small team, small brewery, and we're just dabbling around and figuring out this AI stuff.
Nice. Small but mighty. That's okay. And John, we'll bring it with John sandwich time now. John, why don't you give us your intro?
Oh, hi, everybody. John Szymankiewicz with Beer Law Center. I'm an attorney, obviously, or maybe not obviously, and I work with breweries, wineries, and distilleries. I've been in the alcohol beverage space for about 15 years now, and help people sort of all the way through from startup to buying and selling. So cradle to grave, all our stuff touches alcohol in some way. And also, like the rest of the free world, trying to get used to what AI means to me and my job now and in the next 4 to 5 years. So
great. And I am Chris Overlay. I'm the CEO and founder of Get Hoptimized. We are a marketing company built for craft beer and craft bev, and we are also using AI stuff and for all sorts of things, as you can imagine, from a marketing perspective, which we're going to get into next. So I think where I'd like to maybe start the conversation with us today is like some groundwork into how each of us is utilizing AI now. Like, are there any specific tools that you're using? How is your company using it? Let's start there and maybe go around the room in the same way. Let's just keep that pattern going. Hootie, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. We at Paradym saw a shift of people starting to use OpenAI for their data for beverage companies, and we were immediately concerned with that because OpenAI is just that, it's open. So we saw an opportunity to start creating a more closed off AI environment for companies can come in and upload their data and start to ask it questions and feel like it's in a safe space. And we've been a big, huge proponent of that now for the last year and a half, and saw the benefits of it being much more safe with your data. Number one, it's definitely a little more on the practical side. Because if you don't know enough about AI, we actually have people on staff that can help you, build your prompts and your questions to get to the information there. As far as the company itself, we do use AI to promote and create things within our company from the marketing side as well. So we do see the benefits, but as we'll talk about today, you'll also understand some of the stuff that we are concerned about as well. But for right now, that's how we're using AI to try to make a game changer for companies out there looking for a better, robust tool, if you will, that can actually cut down on some man hours for your analysts.
Excellent. So we've got data analysis AI usage from Hootie's quadrant here. Michael, how are you and or the brewery using AI right now?
Also for some data analysis, mostly financial analysis. Each month, I give it our P&L sheet for that month and ask it to compare it to the months prior, and it's actually just getting better and better over time in analyzing trends as I give it more and more information. It even and ChatGPT is the tool that I'm using mostly for that, and it's been great in asking questions back. I've also used it minimally around some event posters, particularly in those times where a little bit in a pinch, even though I have a marketing background, I'm still guilty of oh, that's next week. Let's get something out there quick. So it's helped with that, but also on the other hand, building out a schedule, a social media calendar. I've used it to help out with that, and also used it for just some simple forms and things, SOPs, light contracts, nothing heavy, but small things like that it's been able to help me put together, and at least gives me the groundwork to work off of.
And you say you're using mostly ChatGPT right now?
Yep.
Cool. Even for the image generation stuff, I think ChatGPT's got built in for that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
it does when you pay the $24 a month or whatever.
They figured that out quick, right? Subscription model, they got on that really fast. Right on. John, what about on the legal side? Are you using AI for things that you're doing right now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, let me say that lawyers are not good at adopting technology, right? We're right up there with knuckle-dragging troglodytes. I know of lawyers who have not given up their fax machine yet. So we're just a little slow to adopt these newfangled interwebs. But that being said, even those of us who are reticent are being sort of dragged and a stick at one end and a carrot at the other, going, okay, no, there is something here. So yeah, I am trying to use ChatGPT and Claude to try and do what I do better and faster to save my clients money, or time, or some basic research, so I can spend 20 minutes reviewing something instead of an hour trying to find the stuff to review. So that's sort of how I'm leveraging it. And then again, spending a lot of time with clients like we're doing here today, talking about, well, okay, here's how you're using it. Be thinking about these things, and kind of advising clients on what AI can and maybe shouldn't do.
Are you sure that you're a lawyer? Because you just said you're trying to save clients money. And,
well, I'm trying to get out ahead of this so that I'm not one of the ones that just gets eliminated by AI, right? I'm trying to make our robot overlords happy and remember me in the future. That's all I'm saying.
Right on. Okay, good. All right, so you're one of the good ones. On our side, we're using AI for all kinds of stuff. As you can imagine, a lot of the creative end of it, especially. So like image generation, video generation, even like editing videos, editing images, and all kinds of tools within that. So we're using ChatGPT, VO, and Gemini, Google's tools. We're also really fascinated by what is built into like Adobe's suite and their like generative fill on things, coming up with real fun tool or applications of that. Copy, we're doing it, we're helping it, we're having it help us like ideate things like shot list for content shoots and blog articles and some of those things too. So we've got a wide range of things we're experimenting with on the marketing end of it, which is kind of fun. So a lot of AI experience between all of us. The next question I want to get into is diving into the more of the meat and the deeper parts of this conversation is like, let's talk about how AI is being used in the craft beer industry right now. Like, I want to ask like what you guys are seeing in terms of like creative applications. Maybe you've got some examples of where this has panned out or some cool things that you've seen, or how you see AI benefiting the craft beer industry now and or in the future. And I'll switch up the order of operation here. Maybe we'll jump to Mike first since he's our resident brewery person. What do you think about that question? What creative applications, how you see it benefiting us now and in the future?
I mean, certainly now I'm benefiting from it in those things I mentioned before, just, being able to feed it financials, get some real-time feedback, and get some, I guess, waypoints off of it. It'll build a 4-week cash flow projection for me that is very valuable. Gives me some things to shoot for, things to look for in the day-to-day of the business.
And you're like plugging in like a financial report of some sort into that. So you're pulling in like just a spreadsheet and saying, hey, give me.
Yeah, I actually, I download P&Ls out of QuickBooks at the end of each month, and I upload it to ChatGPT, and my prompt, I mean, I'm sure we'll really dive into this, but prompts are where it's at. You really have to know how to ask. It can do a lot of work for you, but you've really got to tell it in specifics what you want. So I ask it to play the role of CFO. And I ask it to deep dive. That's another kind of key phrase in the AI world. Because you can get great stuff from what AI can do in 30 seconds, but if you ask it to deep dive, it does a little better. It does literally go deeper, and that's where I just get more robust questions back. It'll start to ask me like, hey, what does this category on your P&L entail? What else in here? What's costing this much? Which then prompts me to go, well, I need to go deep dive that and make sure I know what's all in that category. So yeah,
the CFO, you're like, well, my CFO is asking me this question. I better go figure it out, right?
Yeah. And it's ChatGPT kind of. I don't know if it's because I'm snarky with it and it's just snarky back, but it actually is kind of fun. Even like it's not very bland at all in what it gives back to me. It's pretty fun. That's really, I think, like the most meaningful way that I've used it so far. Through that exercise, been able to produce some spreadsheets that I probably could have come up with on my own, but that probably would have taken me hours. That I can just say, hey, I need a COGS spreadsheet for the beers we make that include the ingredients, the hours worked, all of this. And it does that spreadsheet for me. It fills in those fields, makes sure those, all those cells total and do what spreadsheets are supposed to do. That I don't have to go figure out like, oh, well, what is this formula going to be? And let me Google this formula and let me make sure I got this right. It does it. And it goes, here's an XLS spreadsheet that you can upload to Google Docs or whatever you're using and go from there. Another key place that I think has been a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with our label artwork. We do a lot of.
I was going to ask you about labels and if you're doing that with it.
Yeah, so we don't use ChatGPT or any AI in the creation of the artwork itself. That's something I'm just principled on. That's how I've made my living is in the graphic design space and web design space. So to see AI come in and, every once in a while it pulls it off, but usually you can tell it's AI. Those are things that we've avoided, other than what you alluded to earlier, Chris, in terms of prompts and like ideating, like, Dan, I want to make this beer label, the name is a Back to the Future reference. Give me some icons and things I can include that don't trespass on intellectual property, but keep it fun. So, and it'll be like, hey, here's some ideas. And even giving it a number, I've found has been beneficial to actually say, give me 20 ideas instead of give me some ideas. Like, give me 20 ideas, and you'll see that 15 of them are terrible. But you'll get 5 that you're like, oh, that's funny. There's something here. Oh, and it made me think of this. And now I've really got something, but you just needed that spark. So like using AI for that creative spark. But what I was getting at was what we've been doing is after the label's complete, one of the things that just sometimes I'm stuck with writer's block, and I'm like, I want to create a beer description for this. So here's my label. The beer's called Stay Thirsty. I want you to incorporate lyrics from Limp Bizkit into the description of this beer. Here's the label art, so you have all the hops, you have all of the ABV, all the info of the label. Here's the label. Give me a beer description. And again, 80% of the beer description will actually be pretty clever and pretty funny. 20% of it's like, nope, we're editing this out because this is really cheesy and this is dumb. But it gets me to the place that I wanted to go a lot quicker than.
That's pretty cool that you guys are saying, here's the label and uploading that and then saying, give me the description out of that. So saving yourself even the time from having to like transpose that label into text and put that into the prompt. That's pretty creative, actually. I wouldn't have thought of that because I wouldn't have had enough confidence in AI to do it. Something you said earlier makes me want to loop Hootie into the conversation because you were talking about spreadsheets and you're using this for financial data. But Hootie, I know you and I have had conversations about this. You guys are using spreadsheets too and having AI pull this stuff, but in a different way, more in like sales data, things like that. Can you talk about that a little bit in your applications there?
Yeah, especially so with Bevlytics.ai, we are basically telling the client, take your own internal data. And in this spreadsheet format, we give you a template. It needs to look like this. You upload it in there. And once it's uploaded, whether it's your own syndicated data that you have or your depletion data or even your own shipment data, bring it in and it'll go ahead and takes about, I don't know, anywhere between maybe 6 to 8 minutes, and it formats itself, and then it's up and it's ready for you to start perusing it. The AI that we have built in, we're using something called semantic AI. I know that a lot of people out there watching this are going to be like, oh, that's a lot of AI tools have that, but we're really using that because people ask questions, and then in order for it to learn and stuff, instead of going through all this stuff, like if you ask it, hey, tell me what the top 5 items are, and it's like, what's an item? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I called that column SKUs. What are the top 5 SKUs that are going on in this thing? And then it starts to learn, oh, moving forward, an item is a SKU is an item, semantics, right? So it starts to learn that. So we're telling people to use that to cut down on, obviously time is one of the things we talked about. We also wanted to keep it in a walled environment so your information is safe. But one of the things that I'm starting to see other people ask for that it will do as well is it creates a smarter demand forecast. So you can upload information in there to get better predictions and forecasting pieces to it. You can also, within that, type in some other things and bring in some other applications like weather patterns, or if there's some local events that are happening, to really get a good sense of idea of what it should look like when you're forecasting. I have been asked to see if we could create something where people can optimize scheduling, which it can do. And I know there's a lot of breweries using it for that, to optimize their scheduling for their brew schedules, their raw material procurement, the packaging runs, right? So they're feeding it all that kind of stuff too, which we can do as well. And then that actually ties in with supply chain, right? So I've been hearing about certain companies that are using it to identify potential disruptions in CO2 availability or certain hop shortages, that kind of stuff. So I see it being used in other ways, not just the way we're using it, where it's really data driven on information coming in, but also using it to springboard, if you will, into other things that they need to use it for, like Michael's talking about in those perspectives. And the only thing I want to say that is when you are doing the data piece, though, and even for Michael, he probably does this as well, you do need to validate what it's telling you when it comes back. The validation is crucial. It's still not a super AI, is what I would say. So sometimes it will make assumptions, and you got to go back a little bit and check that. And of course, when you log into Bevlytics AI, we make sure you click OK on the T's and C's to know that you need to check your own info on some of this to make sure before you drop it in a slide and get in front of a buyer. Make sure all that information in there is correct. It's still not completely perfect, which is funny because you could actually take that data and then tell another AI agent, hey, double check their data to see if that's even correct, right? But
actually, that's a good idea,
right? But you do want to at least have that springboard to say, okay, it's starting me down this path of this is the information I'm looking at, and it's starting to give me some pretty good numbers, and I'm just going to validate that before I move forward. And I think that's one thing I just want to make sure that everybody understands, at least from today's podcast, is that it's not entirely perfect. You will need to double check your work on it, but you'll spend way less time than you trying to build it from scratch.
Excellent. And I think that's super interesting that it's like, yeah, there's the analysis on like existing data and tell me a story of the data, but then you're saying there's also this opportunity to create forecasts and have it be a tool from kind of a planning and marketing and sales perspective. John, what about on the legal side? Are you seeing examples of this playing out with legal stuff, contracts, or documents, or Absolutely. I don't know those things. So you're the expert on that stuff.
Well, and I'll start with the 2 points again that I like, Hootie, what I want people to take away from this. One, it's all about the prompts, and two, verify, because AI is only looking at the universe it knows, right? And so Mike was talking about, it's going to give me this 4-week cash flow forecast. Okay, perfect. But does it know that 4 weeks covers Memorial Day? And we get a bump at Memorial Day and we need more people? Does it know that? Has it figured out that yet? So those sort of things. And on the flip side, Hootie's absolutely right, especially if you're asking it to create tools like spreadsheets. Yes, it's going to take me hours to make this spreadsheet, but at the end, I know what went into that damn formula, and that number includes these things. If I just take a tool that's generated by AI, I don't know that it's actually right. And if I just take that as face value as a template, gosh, I could just be exacerbating errors down the line. Yeah. And that's actually what I see with people who are doing things like, write me a contract for this. Okay, you took 2 or 3 sentences and asked, ChatGPT or something to write you a contract. You didn't tell it what state you were in, what kind of laws apply, if there's anything else going on. And then, what it loses there is, and it's great, it's intelligent, and it again, Michael said this really well, it gets me to where I want to start from a whole lot faster. But it doesn't I haven't found it take the place of experience yet, where, for example, it's going to throw together this contract, but I know there better be like a alternative dispute resolution, or arbitration or mediation clause in that contract. Otherwise, the only thing you can do is file a lawsuit. We know we need to force somebody to do something else, or what that teaches us about experience that we've all kind of been around. I'm kind of thinking about Hootie looking at data going, okay, I know that's what it says, but my gut tells me that's not right. So where I'm seeing people use it, and it's, I'll give you an example that I got on Friday. A homebrew club actually contacted me and said, hey, in North Carolina, can we meet at a brewery and bring our homebrew beer? And I said, well, the laws just changed on that, in North Carolina, 2 years ago. And so there's some things you have to do. And, here's kind of the structure. And they said, well, I'm looking at something that says all I need to do is this. that doesn't sound right. Who told you that? Well, I just asked ChatGPT. Did you tell it you were in North Carolina? Did you tell it to look at the ABC regulations in North Carolina? Well, no. Okay, now we have a discussion because as Mike said, if you don't give it specifics, it doesn't know to give you the right answer or give you the answer you're looking for. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge. And you know, I again, proponent of AI and being able to do these things quicker, but it's about engineering your prompt and verifying what you get out of it.
Yeah.
And
you
John,
answered one of the,
on that one you were talking about, right? That's where I brought up before when we talked to Chris about XAI, like explainable AI. So if this person said, well, this is what I was told I could do for my homebrew club, the next questions would be, explain to me what resources told you that. And it will grab the resources and tell you, well, this is what I read back in something, you know, posted on 2010. Yeah, things have changed since then. So,
and you know,
right?
when you don't focus it to look at these resources,
yes,
it just looks at everything.
It does.
And we know that everything on the internet is true and accurate.
Yeah, it was on the internet. I tell my wife that all the time. Like, it was on the internet. Of course, it's true. And you know, even on our side, you know, I'm going to make one point, and then I want to transition, come back to the kind of point you guys are getting to with some of this and the hesitations with things. But you know, something cool we've been doing is, you know, we'll take a photo from somebody's tap room and layer that into like an Adobe system, and then tell AI, look, this is the tap room. Now I want you to create scenes of people, or, you know, or mocking movie scenes, or putting beers on tables. And using that initial kind of part of the prompt is the kind of setting the setting with actual photos or video from the client, and then creating a piece of collateral from that. And man, is it a great tool for when you don't have a photographer or you don't have a content person to create something. It's like, oh wow, AI can really do this. And it's actually pretty darn good. The things we're putting together. I mean, it takes a little bit of graphic design work still to polish it up, but you know, there's just cool stuff that's happening. But even with that, you know, and I'll segue into our hesitations thing. We have some clients that promote like movie nights and things. And like, we want to try to recreate a scene from a movie in the tap room, but we have to be careful not to use like, you know, images that look like the actual actor in that movie and these trademark things. And that's the real next big piece of this is like, what hesitations do we have? What ethical concerns are out there? And that's what I want to ask you guys. I mean, what are you worried about when it comes to AI? And I mean, John, you're kind of the first person to go to with this stuff because you're the lawyer. So we'll kind of reverse this order and come back around. But what hesitations do you have and concerns?
Well, so we all know AI learns based on the universe it's exposed to. And Hootie also mentioned, hey, we're going to, you know, one of our tools gives you a closed universe, right? We're going to only use your data. Well, especially if you're not paying for AI, right? You're using the free ChatGPT or whatever. If it's free, that means you're the product, right? Somebody is buying your data and is using that. And that includes what you upload. So you have to be careful. That's one of the things, you know, I won't say attorneys are struggling with, but it's very high on our radar is that if I want AI to generate something for me, I can't tell it anything about my clients or what's going on, because that automatically breaches that attorney-client privilege because it goes to a third party that's that's not controlled, and I don't know where that data could end up, right? So, you know,
and this has happened in like the real world. You know, AI recorders and things like this have sput out, you know, private information that really should have been shared. So you're totally valid with this.
Yeah, and I talked to somebody the other day that said, oh yeah. We uploaded something and then realized we shared it. And so we hired somebody to go delete it off the internet. I'm not an IT person, but I don't think that works that way.
I don't know if you could get into ChatGPT server and delete that, dude.
So, you know, that, you know, from a data privacy confidentiality, that's something I'd think about, right? Other things are it comes back to what I said already for me is like trust but verify. You know, once you do these things, and I think, you know, Michael said it earlier, you have to iterate on the same topic or questions to get to the better answer rather than just an answer. If you just give it at face value, tell me about this, and take that as the answer, you're much more likely to get the wrong one than what you're looking to get from it. So, those are my big ones. The other one, I'll put a plug in for actual human attorneys, in that, yes, I believe that, this will kind of shrink the universe of people, because we don't need as many people typing up contracts. But there's that experience where I go, oh, but I've worked with 18 breweries in this situation. You also ought to be doing this, this, and this that you haven't asked about. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the part that I think if we just put all of our faith in AI, we're going to struggle with the flip side of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's only as good as what you input and what it knows. But, there's lots of experience that humans like yourself have that can verify the information and input or give you questions and things like that to ask that maybe you wouldn't have asked. Michael, you brought up something earlier about kind of your principles around the artist and that end of it. So maybe I'll come to you on this. What are your hesitations, ethical concerns, ethical considerations when it comes to AI?
Well, here in our area, the Portland area, there's a lot of creatives. There's a lot of graphic design folks that have made their living in the beer and beverage world for a long time. And there's a little bit of AI witch hunt that happens in the comments section when AI is seen on a local brand's can art.
I'm not surprised that's the case in Portland.
Yeah. It's a real thing. And it is for me, it is a real ethical issue to like, hey, am I replacing a graphic designer here and taking away from them by just generating something here? So I still don't use it in places where I've traditionally had one of our designers work with us. I still want them to work with us. However, now I'm going to them with better prompts and, spending a little less because there's less time involved. There's not that part of the process that's, here's 5 or 6 iterations of an idea. Which direction do you want to go? I've already had AI give me 5 or 6 iterations of an idea. Here's my thoughts. So I'm really kind of going to them then with, kind of what we used to do with like Pinterest albums. Sometimes in design, people would bring us Pinterest albums and say, here's my aesthetic. What do we do with this? So similarly, now I'm just going, hey, here's 5 things that ChatGPT generated that I like the direction of. And I would say that in particular, ChatGPT, what it generates is pretty obvious. It's and so when I do use something like that, when I do, I mentioned that I have done like a quick social media post thing, right? That's something that I wasn't going to hire a graphic designer for 2 hours to make me a square image to put on Instagram. I've never done that. Not going to do that. But in that case, how I've used it is I've made sure that it's ridiculous enough that it's obvious I'm using AI. I'm not trying to hide that this is AI. This is silly. This is ridiculous. No, I didn't pay anybody to do this. Have fun with it. And thankfully, we've avoided the pitchfork mob of graphic designers coming after us. And
do you include that in your prompt that all human characters must only have 3 fingers and a thumb?
Right.
Just make it really clear, like a Simpsons episode or something.
Yeah, it was wild. When the tools really started coming out, I was terrible at hands and eating and drinking and these things, and it's gotten so much better. And I mean, some of the ones that are crazy deep fake land they're super good, almost indiscernible from real life on the internet. So it's getting better all the time. And I do like what you're saying about, hey, we're clearly making it, we're not trying to rip anybody off. And, to add to that too, AI, it's a tool, right? And it still takes someone to wield that tool, and you can be better or worse than somebody else that's wielding that tool. And because I have some of the same concerns, similar, of like, as a marketing agency, like, yeah, I would be lying if I didn't say that, I'm worried about AI coming for, hours that we would normally bill for. But we have to recognize that and say, look, it's a tool. It's something we know how to use, and we can use it better than the average Joe. So let's figure out how to use it. And I encourage my designers to use. I'm like, yeah, use AI to build out what you need, and then go in there and polish up and make it look nice. But yeah, same kind of concerns you have with some of those things as well. And the artists are part of this too. Forget about the time, savings, but like about plagiarism, and like where AI comes from and the images it takes into account to create a piece of art. It's all pieces from somebody else's work or something they've posted. And we have to figure out how to address this as a world and as a society, because these artists, they do have a right to that stuff, and we have to find a way to either give credit or compensate or build AI tools around certain databases of imagery and those kind of things, which I think will get there. But it is absolutely a concern. Hootie, what about on your side? I mean, what gets your hackles up when it comes to AI?
Well, and speaking from the marketing piece, I'll just tie into that one real quickly, especially if the marketing teams out there, whether it be breweries or companies like yourself, is consumer data. You're bringing in some consumer data to try to focus your marketing efforts, right? Whether it's personalized marketing program or loyalty program or just understanding consumer preferences. Those things make me a little bit nervous because of where are we on the spectrum of data privacy regulations, right? What are we doing to make sure we're compliant? I think it's very important, and Michael is making a lead towards this, is breweries need to be, transparent in their data practices. And if you are that, and everybody gets you and gets that that's what's going on, that consumer trust comes right back into where it never left, right? Because you are being transparent in that. John hit on another one, data bias. Right? If you're taking that information in and not exposing it to enough things to try to make decisions from, whether it's demographics or historical things that are happening with the brand, your recommendations from AI could actually create these leading diverse product offerings that aren't even really going to do anything for you because you haven't really trained it up enough to give it a bigger scope of what it's supposed to be looking for. And I think the other one that kind of the third one I'll touch on is probably proprietary processes or recipes. If you're a brewery and you're small and you don't want to pay to have the personalization or the business level of AI and you're using the free one, you're uploading proprietary recipes or proprietary processes. What are the safeguards against your IP at that point, right? You are now exposing it to everybody. So the next person that asks about that's going to bring in your idea, unless you know for a fact that you asked about something about that company or not, can be used down the road against your own brand and start causing issues with market share and sales. So those three things, proprietary stuff, consumer data bias, all that is probably at my top three that I get concerned about, to make sure that we as businesses, not just breweries, but as businesses, take those things into consideration when using AI.
Yeah, this is a perfect segue into the next section. I keep saying that, but we're just so good at this segue thing, I think. We got 4 quadrants of business represented on the panel. Yeah, marketing, legal, data, and brewery operations, brewery ownership. How can the 4 of us, speaking for all of our segments, collaborate to ensure that we can roll out AI successfully and ethically? Or how can the industry ensure that this happens? Curious your guys' opinion on this. Like, okay, so we understand the hesitations, we understand the value and the benefits. We talked about that. How do we move forward here and work together to make sure we do this right? And I don't know who wants to start with this one. We can popcorn it. Maybe come back to John, since you were first to talk on the last one.
Okay, I was going to say I've got a particular personal bent on this, right? And it's something I've been doing since I started in the beverage industry. Is to me, it's all about transparency, right? So you mentioned, hey John, are you really a lawyer if you are looking at saving the client's money? Well, yes, that is what we're supposed to do, for God's sakes. But I have a And with every client I have a conversation that says, I'm not interested in squeezing you for every dime because I want you to hire me on the next thing, which means this has to be sustainable. You've got to feel like you're getting good value, and I have to be able to pay rent. And to me, that's the basis of the conversation. When I go to Michael and say, yeah, I can do this, this, and this for you. If I do it all, this is what I can do. And Michael says, well, what if I give you something from ChatGPT, or what if I, present you with something? I'll try and do my best. If I still have to rewrite the damn thing, I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to tell you why, and we need to have that conversation around, okay, yeah, if you give me this and it's a good draft and give it to me in Word, not some sort of bizarre thing I can't edit, right? Great. Maybe we can, save yourself some money, save me some time, because for God's sakes, it is not a good use of a lawyer's time to type words, right? Carefully chosen words, or putting the right words in the right parts. Yes, that's where you need somebody with expertise. But typing up some boilerplate, probably not as important, And so if instead I can charge for my expertise at 25% of the time that I would normally have charged 100% for, I can either, one, I have to go find more clients, but I can still move, have a career and move on, and I can still deliver that value to Michael or to whoever that says, okay, yes, I got this, and I know it's been verified, or that it's probably tailored most for me, and I'm protected by this, lawyer stuff in it. So for me, it's all about that transparency.
So you think it's fair and actually a responsibility to say I am using these tools as a vendor or as a business, and being transparent about that, and then also being transparent about the service and what goes into it and all those things. But you're saying, yes, you got to be transparent about what you're using, at least to your clients and really to the market, probably is what you'd allude to there.
Yes, and one little plug to help rehabilitate some lawyer reputation. In most states, it's actually required that if you're using AI and that saves you time, the client has to get the benefit of that.
Really? So like they're required. Like if you save time on it, you can't just be like, oh yeah, we for sure did.
This would have taken me an hour. Yeah, no, you have to give it the time you actually did. Yeah.
I'm surprised that they figured this out that fast. Usually governments and regulations are really slow. So
we're not all
they're on it. Yeah. When money's involved. Michael, how do you think we collaborate or ensure that this is rolled out successfully in the industry?
Well, to speak to kind of the inverse of what John was saying, from the brewery side, going to an attorney, which I had to do in the last year, we had a conflict with a prior partner and needed to figure out how to navigate that. So, here I am sitting with a 48-page operating agreement that is legalese that I don't even know where to start. And frankly, I'm scared of what it's going to cost me to go talk to somebody like John and to read 48 pages and then tell me, So my attorney that I worked with was thankful that I came to him with like, hey, I've asked ChatGPT to read my operating agreement. I've explained to it the situation I'm dealing with, without specifics of names and things like that, but here's my situation. What in this document applies to my situation here? And it called out 10 specific sections that then I was able to go in and have that conversation and say, hey, you need to look at section 24E and 32F, and I think these kind of apply to my situation. And he was grateful of like, oh, okay, there's already been a little bit of legwork done here. You already have an idea of what's going on. And I felt more comfortable going and having the conversation instead of just.
Do you think that conversation would have went differently had you have just given him your notes and said, yeah, here's my short notes and what I think is important, instead of saying, hey, I ran this through ChatGPT first, here's what I got from it? Do you think that colored the conversation there for better or for worse?
Yeah, I don't think Negatively, I think, it got a little bit of a smirk and a grin of like, smart, here we are, AI is happening. That was kind of this is part of our world now, but there,
That guy already gave up his fax machine. He's good. He's all right.
right. Yeah.
On the fact.
So
I think
yeah,
that was smart, and being honest and transparent about that. I would have appreciated that, if a client sends me something, this is what we want to use, and they tell me, hey, we generated with AI. So I kind of know what to look for in that asset or in that copy or whatnot. It definitely helps me. So I would imagine it helped him. And that's why I asked that question. But yeah. Hootie, what do you think is the way for us to do this the right way in the industry?
I think when I think about craft beer, just we're going to stick within that segment right there. I mean, there are so many resources for breweries to go to, whether it's Brewing Alliance or Beer Institute or in any of these groups, right? These subgroups that are out there, Brewers Association. I think that there should be a coalition or a collective of law mixed in with brewery, mixed in with data folks that kind of help build something that becomes a resource tool to go online and look these things up and be, hate to say donating your time to help that. But I mean, that's one thing I love about craft brew is everybody tends to try to help each other because they want all boats to rise with the tide, right? So I see a little bit of that in wine. I did see a little bit of that in spirits in my career too. So I feel like this segment, craft beer itself, has so many different opportunities within other groups that are dedicated to it. You just need to have a leg of that somewhere in the site or as a resource to discuss these things, or an FAQ or something that gets the information across from all points of view. One of the things I was going to mention to John is, since he's into law, I mean, basically when you create marketing for AI for your brand, the question is, who owns the copyright? Because things that I have read or things that I have told me is that copyright typically requires some sort of human authorship tied to it. So that already creates a gray area that we're talking about today that I wouldn't know the answer to. Michael really doesn't know the answer to. John's probably going to have to go to ChatGPT and get an answer for that too. But there's a perfect example of like, what is the law behind that? And we're trying to be transparent by saying, hey, we took this image and we made it and it's AI and we're telling you that. Now the question is, who actually owns it legally at that point?
Yeah. Do you have an answer for that, John?
Somebody needs that kind of information as they move forward.
Yeah. So the question here is, did you hire somebody to make it, right? Was it a paid for service for that thing, right? And so then the question is, well, did creating an account, was that enough? Or if I was doing the paid for prescription or subscription, was that enough? Or
yeah.
And then, there's the copyright question, and then there's the trademark question.
Yeah.
Right. Where, you create something or have AI create something, that's a completely different standard of how close is too close to somebody else's versus who owns that particular image. It's all right. So for those of us who are old enough to remember the world before the internet, right? AI is that next generation, right? Just as the world has changed with the internet, and we're not just going through the phone book trying to find our marketing person, we're running up against that same technological shift going, this is great, but how does it work? I just hope that, in another 5 to 10 years, all AI isn't cat-based, at that point. Yeah. Like the internet seems to be.
I would argue that I think we have a responsibility. We as industry professionals, if we're going to call ourselves an expert and industry professional, we have a responsibility to understand how these things work and to pay attention to what's going on out there so that we can speak from an educated perspective and advise our clients in a good way. Because what we don't want to have happen is that we're giving advice that's just, we're full of shit, with things. And I'm not saying anybody here does that. You guys clearly aren't. But hey, we have an ethical responsibility, a professional responsibility to know this stuff, at least as much as we can, and be honest about the things that we don't know, not because there's not an answer, but we just don't know yet, Yeah. So we're trying to figure it out. I think all of you guys would agree with that as well. So we got about, 5-10 minutes left. I want to get to two more things. First one is big takeaway. segment, little snippet from each of you guys. What do you think is like your single most important piece of advice that you would give a craft brewery considering investing in AI right now? And let's start with Hootie.
Here's what I would say to everybody that's listening, that's wavering one way or the other. Don't invest in AI because everyone else is. I would say invest in AI because it may be the best tool to solve a specific pressing challenge or problem that you have that will benefit your brewery or your company. But I'm a huge advocate of sitting back and waiting until you have the moment of when you need to strike on something that's new, still hasn't been completely stood up and is solid. So you don't have to be a me too right off the bat.
Okay. All right. So you're saying don't jump on the bandwagon unless you're feeling like you need it, or you're really.
But with that said, we think we built a solution that you do want to jump on the bandwagon with data. So let me say that as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'll jump in because my kind of advice is slightly counter to that. In a way, I think that, I think you should be using it. I think you need practice with it. And at the very least, you should be paying attention to how these things evolve because, the AI train is already moving. It's not so far out the gates that you can't still run and catch up and jump on. But like, I wouldn't advise avoiding it altogether because, I think that if you totally, and I don't think this is what you were saying, Hootie, but like if you stick your head in the ground and say, oh yeah, AI is never going to be a thing, you're kind of putting yourself in a similar bucket to the folks that said social media would never take off, that the internet would never take off. And like, you don't want to be in that position because your competitors, they are on board. They're figuring it out now and creating efficiencies now. And eventually they're going to outmaneuver you with cost savings and some of these things. So, and again, I don't think you were quite saying this exactly, but you're saying be smart about it.
Be smart about it.
I'm saying, hey, you've got to pay attention and at least get practice now while it's still fair to be in training ground. Yeah. What about you, Mike? What's your big key takeaway advice?
It's really, if this interests you, if this, you're like, okay, there's some things here. It's really about just like push the boat away from the dock, just float slowly out there, get your toes in the water, whatever analogy you want to use, get out there and start using it because, when I started using it, it's only been 5 or 6 months ago. I didn't know what I know now. It wasn't, the responses weren't as robust as what I'm getting now. Because it's all about that data collection that it takes in, and it continues to know more and more and more about my company as I give it that information. So that it can now ask me questions about like, hey, did you reach this goal? Whatever happened to, this expansion that you were going to do? Where's that at in your timeline and everything? And it's like, oh yeah, I need to update you on where we're at with that and how this is working. And now I'm just getting a whole lot more robust and super helpful responses, ideas, insights. Again, it's not telling me how to run my business, but it's given me a lot of things to think about that in the day-to-day of running a brewery, I don't have the time to think about, but it's very easy to just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, what do I need to be planning on right now? How are things looking? Here was our last week of sales. How does this trend? Give me feedback. And then all of a sudden my wheels are turning and so just push out. Just
get the boat out the dock is what I think your metaphor there.
Yep.
Nice. John, what about you? What's your big piece of advice?
I'm going to kind of try and cram those three things together and say that you should be playing with this now, right? And maybe trying it with things that are not critical. When you want to have something critical, you need to have some experience with AI behind you. The time you want to, should I do this or should I write this contract, or that's not the time to be learning how AI works. Play with it along the way, verify and so forth, so that you've got some understanding of how it thinks, how it works, and what it's going to put out before you actually need to rely on that data potentially. And the way I think about that too, and this is the other piece I'd say to take away, again, it's that trust but verify, is I saw a great bumper sticker the other day, and it said, YouTube certified car mechanic, right? And the idea is, I love working on my car, and I'll go, how do I do this? And there's a YouTube video on it. But if you only watch one, you're an idiot. You need to watch at least 2 or 3 of these different things to see how different, what different inputs or outputs there are. So you have to think about it as if I put this in Google, would I trust the first thing that comes up? No, I think through the other pieces. You have to think about it that way as an iterative model.
So don't just take the first answer. Try to dig deeper is what I'm getting from you on that. Excellent. So, man, you guys have been awesome for this panel. I want to give you guys each a chance to kind of plug what you have going on. If somebody's watching this or listening to this panel and saying, man, I need help with this, how can you help? And what's the best way to get in touch with you or your company? Let's maybe do what we initially did. We'll start with Hootie, then go to Mike, and then John, and then me.
Yeah, first off, thanks, Chris, for this opportunity today. This has been awesome. Appreciate being with these folks in the room as well. So, so Paradym,
CBP, that's their platform. They did it for us. So thanks, CBP.
Exactly, the platform as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to get in here and discuss these things. But if you are out there after watching this and looking to take your data and put it through our systems, we have 3 that we are launching over the next 90 days. The first one this month is Bevlytics. Lytics is spelled Lytics, so it's bevlytics.ai. We'll be launching 420lytics.ai as well. That's next month, and then by the end of the year, if you don't have cannabis and you don't have beverages, we have cpglytics.ai. And again, we are going to be open for business on the first one this week. So we're really excited to be onboarding our clients on that platform. And then on the other side of that, on the other side of the AI stuff, Paradym Solutions, there's 10 of us in the company now today. And we also do a lot of stuff like demand forecasting and supply chain, any of those kind of things that we use a little bit. And most of that's in Power BI models. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can shoot us an email. We have sales@paradymdata.com. And then you can also go to me at jonathan.hooten@paradymdata.com as well.
Excellent. Lots of great tools there. Michael, what do you got? How can people get in touch with you, or how can you help? Well,
you can find me at Vice Beer or at Michael Perozzo on Instagram. Drop me a DM if you want to ask some questions about how I'm using this. Happy to help. Always excited to talk with other brewery owners, find out what's working for them, and get ideas myself too. That's how we all win at this. And of course, if you're in the Portland metro area, don't be afraid to cross the bridge. We're over in Vancouver, Washington, very close. We're probably actually the closest brewery to the Portland airport. But we're on the other side of the river. So come visit us. Grains of Wrath and Trapdoor are over here too. It's just a good beer scene outside of Portland. So come say
I got a long layover there. Now I know you're close to the airport. Just jump on over.
Hit me up. I'll pick you up.
John, what about you? What do you got going on? How can you help? And how do we get in touch with you?
Well, unlike some folks, lawyers are bounded by where we're licensed, right? So I practice federal law across the country. State law in North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia. But here's my commitment to the industry, right, is that give me a call. I'm happy to talk about whatever it is. If I can't help you, I'll help you find somebody who can. There aren't that many beverage lawyers in the country, and we kind of know each other. So happy to connect you with whoever in your jurisdiction. If you want to email me directly, john@beerlawcenter.com. Beerlawcenter.com is the website, and we're on all the socials at Beer Law Center. So
I'll echo that. John has always been an excellent resource, and I've literally watched this guy talk to folks and had some of my professional colleagues and things like that reach out to him, and you've been an excellent resource and networking partner. So great guy, John.
None of them have hired me, but I appreciate that.
Damn, you didn't have to say that.
Nice.
No worries. That's the point, is the connections. I'm fine with that.
Nice. Well, on our side, this is actually the first time we're announcing this. We are developing a new suite of AI tools. It's not ready yet, but what we hope this to be is to be a resource, like I said, a suite of tools that helps you save time. It gives you resources and helps you execute marketing tactics with confidence, of course. And it's intended to be built, like this AI system is going to be built so that it is relevant to the craft beer industry. And if you're interested in that kind of thing and want to take part in our beta for this, like I said, it's not ready yet, but we are taking signups for it. You can go to gethoptimized.com/AI beta, AIBETA, and drop your name in the form we have on there, sign up, and we will notify you when that is available for you to start testing. We're very excited about that and taking more of a leadership role on AI and helping businesses navigate that. So that's all we've got. Thank you guys very much for your time. Thank the panelists here. Everybody, you guys are so awesome. Thank you for watching and listening. And thanks to Craft Beer Professionals for having us. You guys have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the panel show conference thing.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Get Hoptimized for
guys.
sponsoring, man.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Of course. Cheers, guys. See ya.